Well, Uncle Fred is still watching his football game, but things do happen. Should we let Uncle Fred watch the rest of the football game? Well, you probably can. But what do you do next? How do we take Uncle Fred from his Barcalounger to the next step of the funeral process? Well, thank you, Terry Desmond and Kevin Desmond, for meeting with me here today. Uncle Fred, he passed in the Barcalounger. Unfortunately, he didn't leave any plans.
Well, we're pleased you've come in and talked to us.
Well, thank you so much.
We're here to help.
I understand when I walk into a funeral home is that I have a right to ask for a price list. Do you have a price list?
Yes, we do. Here's our general price list right here, and it lists our services. We have itemized on the front, and then different funeral homes do it differently, but what we've done here is we've put service packages together. There are services that families commonly choose, and these prices here include our total package of all our services that we do for you. And then there's some other options on the back too. Also, we have a casket price list and outer burial container and vault price list.
This is an awful lot of information for me. Can I take one of these and study it?
Certainly.
One of the reasons we prepared the packages is so that people can understand a little bit more rather than just get a itemized service list thrown at them. When you choose one type of service, for instance, if you're going to have a ceremony at church or a visitation, that necessitates other services. If you're going to have a ceremony at church, then you need the hearse and that type of thing. And if you're going to have a service without a casket, then you don't need any of those things. So we've tried to put all that together in the various packages, but all the itemized lists are there, and that's really what people in the end should be sure that they have.
Is this the same price list that I would get at any funeral home?
Well, that's particular to our funeral home. Funeral homes are required to have a general price list, but of course, the prices and service packages and offerings may be different.
However, there are some items that are required on every price list.
Is that one way that I, as a shopper of services from funeral home to funeral home, could look at those basic prices and see the differing prices between them?
Exactly. Exactly. But it's like anything else. You have to also look at what you receive. It's not only the price that's there, but it's the value that's there.
I'm wondering, though, I don't have to wait for Uncle Fred to have passed in the Barcalounger. If this were 3 years ago, I could come in and start shopping for Uncle Fred, or he could have come in himself.
Exactly.
Do you find a lot of families do that? Are they walking in the door saying, could I see your price list, and then doing some comparison shopping?
Oh yes, quite a few. Most with appointments, but some without appointments. They come in and we sit down with them and try and provide as much information as we can.
If I walked into a funeral home and I got some resistance about getting a price list, should that be a red flag for me?
Absolutely. Not only getting a price list to look at, but being able to take the price list with you, that should be a complete red flag. That should be a firm that you would not deal with.
Could I call you and ask for all of these prices over the phone?
Yes.
Price information is available over the phone, and again, that's another Federal Trade Commission rule. That would be another red flag if a firm was not willing to provide those prices almost immediately. It's like any other phone call. Sometimes you can call and a person competent to provide that information might not be there at the moment, but if that firm doesn't call you back very shortly with that information, that's certainly something to be very concerned about.
Now, there's a difference, I understand, between pre-planning and prepaid funeral.
Correct.
What's the difference between a pre-planning and a prepayment?
Pre-planning is just what you mentioned earlier, that Uncle Fred would come in and make his wishes known, and prepaying is actually putting the money aside to pay for that. In many cases, prepaying also means the price is guaranteed. So whatever Uncle Fred may have paid 3 years ago, and that's the price that the funeral would be delivered for. However, that isn't always the case, and that's something that would have to be determined by each individual funeral home.
Say Uncle Fred lived in Kansas and he had a prepaid funeral in Kansas, and now he's in New Jersey and he passes and he goes to a funeral home in New Jersey. Is the New Jersey funeral home going to transfer that payment from Kansas?
Most likely they will. There is no regulation that they have to. But in most cases, the funeral home is going to take the payment and as much as possible try to fulfill the contract that was originally set up. I know that's what we do, and most of the funeral homes that we have worked with, in our experience, that's what's happened.
If Uncle Fred years ago prepaid for a funeral plan, he needs to tell people that he's prepaid for a funeral plan. So I guess the moral of that lesson is if you do prepay, make sure you tell people close to you so they know about it.
Well, both prepaying and pre-planning. There's no use doing it if you don't let those closest to you know that this is what you've done, and you would have a copy of all the paperwork from the funeral home and should share that paperwork with the family.